The gentleman from Oregon is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, our work on the House floor today is the culmination of more than a year's effort to craft legislation in the Energy and Commerce Committee that will save lives and help stem the tide of the opioid crisis that has struck at the health of our people wherever they live in America. In my Oregon district, I've held multiple roundtable discussions with parents, with those addicted, and those who treat the addicted. I've talked with law enforcement officials and emergency room physicians. I've sought the counsel and the advice of those who are closest to this national problem. And I have worked with my colleagues to carefully craft legislation that responds to the need and to their suggestions. The headlines, well, we know they're everywhere, and they tell the tragic stories of loved ones gone far too soon. We're confronting an addiction that mercilessly seizes control and then destroys. This killer doesn't discriminate, not by age, not by race, not by where you live or what you believe. We're here because opioid addiction continues to take the lives of more than 100 people in America each and every day. These are real people in all of our districts, people like Amanda. Just this past January, Amanda was seeking relief from the pain surrounding her mental illness. She ended up dying from an overdose of fentanyl. Her father bravely shared his family's story with our committee, hoping that their loss would help spur Congress to modernize federal laws. It is for the young people like Amanda and her parents, people like Amanda who's tragically lost their bright futures, that we come together today to advance so many bipartisan pieces of legislation. And it is for families like hers, the ones who are left behind with the heartbreak of a loss so many of us could never comprehend, that we will not rest until we have won the fight against the opioid addiction. From passage of the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act, known as CARA, and the 21st Century Cures Act last Congress under the able leadership of Chairman Fred Upton, to the $4 billion in new funding passed earlier this year by this Congress. We have worked long and hard to help families and communities in despair. Last fall, the Health Subcommittee Chairman, Mr. Burgess of Texas, invited all members of the U.S. House to come before his Health Subcommittee and to share their best ideas on how to combat this crisis. We heard from more than 50 members, Republicans and Democrats alike. This spring, the Energy and Commerce Committee held a series of legislative hearings examining ways to protect our communities, to boost our public health and prevention efforts, to improve treatment and care for patients of all ages and all backgrounds. While the work was not always easy, Mr. Speaker, your Energy and Commerce Committee has advanced 57 different pieces of legislation to this House floor, most with unanimous support. That may well be a record for legislating on a single issue. So while the scourge of addiction looms large before us, I believe that we as a Congress and we as the American people are up to this task. The bills before us are not our first efforts in this fight, and you have my word, they will not be the last. But I urge my colleagues today, tomorrow, the rest of this week, and next week, to support the legislation before the House. We have an opportunity to save lives. We have a responsibility to our families, friends, communities, our neighbors, and our nation to lift people out of addiction and to get America on a better path. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.